you said something totally different.
Nice. Oh, he did not like that, Torv. He did not like that.
Welcome back everyone. Today's video starts a series I'm going to call How to Actually Play the Game. These videos are a bit different from my traditional videos, which are guides on specific heroes. Instead, these tutorials focus on certain game mechanics, styles of play, and eventually optimal strategies for various game modes. Today's video is on the topic of ganking, a term often used loosely to describe the button mashing that occurs when you and your buddies gang up on some poor sap, but unfortunately feed them revenge and doom yourselves in the process. In my experience of the game, the vast majority of players don't even know that a form of properly ganking your opponents even exists, let alone what that might look like. Well, I'm here today to show you that proper ganking does in fact exist, and there are certainly proper or effective ways to go about doing so. As for the format for today, I'll be going over some common ganks, slightly more advanced ones, and even some unique hero-specific ganks at the end of the video. Before we get into the actual ganking, there are some very important things I want to clarify. This video is not about team fighting, but ganking, which are two separate circumstances. Team fighting is when multiple players of Team A and Team B are currently fighting in a group, where ganking specifically refers to one person on Team A and more than one person on Team B, although it almost always assumes a 2v1 scenario. Again, this video is about ganking, but I'll be making a team fighting video in the near future. You might also be asking, what does the term gank really mean? Boiled down, ganking is dealing the maximum amount of damage while simultaneously feeding a minimum of revenge. The typical goal of a gank is to use yourself and your teammate to dispatch an enemy as quickly as possible, which serves your team a multitude of purposes. As the last side note, I want to start with some rapid-fire definitions because not everyone understands specific words and I'll be using them a lot during this video, so I want everyone to be able to understand what I'm talking about. The terms I'd like to define for you are buffer, confirm, iframes, hit stun, initiator or setter, and external. To buffer an attack means to input the attack you want to perform before you fully finish the animation of your previous attack. This ensures that your next move will come out as fast as physically possible. Confirming is something you do for your teammates and is best described by an example. If my teammate is throwing some kind of attack, I can perform an action called confirm, which guarantees my teammate will land their attack. This is typically done by either throwing out a guard break, bash, or light attack. Iframes, or invincibility frames, are the few frames a player receives during the startup of a dodge attack, which makes them nearly impossible to hit. You might also recognize these frames from Nobushi, JJ, and Ocelotl's backstep mechanics. Hit stun is a game mechanic designed to stop outnumbered players from getting spammed with attacks. When an opponent is hit by an attack, their guard completely disappears as they are put into a recovery state from being hit. While their guard is down, they are completely defenseless and susceptible to all kinds of attacks. Although there are far more intricate and important rules revolving around hit stun, those are not important for today's video and I can make a short, separate video another time. The initiator or setter is the player who begins or initiates a gank. It can also sometimes be referred to as the setter as they are usually setting up their teammate for big damage. Although the term external can refer to many things in this game, in this context, it means the teammate who is not the initiator. Now that we have those definitions out of the way, let's get into the ganks. Arguably, the most common gank is called a guard break gank. As with all the preceding ganks, I will first show the clip in real time, then play the clip again while breaking it down to explain what is actually happening. A guard break gank begins from, well, a guard break. The player who lands a successful guard break is the initiator. After this guard break, they will throw a neutral heavy as a normal punishment would be. This will also confirm an opener heavy from the external player due to the hit stun on the opponent. After the external lands his first heavy, the initiator throws a second guard break, which will confirm a chain heavy thrown by the external. Here is the same gank, but from the point of view of the external player. Pro tip for this gank: if you are the external in this situation, your first heavy should be from your top position as to not risk hitting your setter. For your follow-up heavy, use one coming from the side. Your opponent will have an extremely small window to dodge, and although your setter's guard break will land regardless, the enemy still has iframes on this brief dodge. However, using your side heavy, you'll cover more ground as you are far more sweeping, and negate the risk of missing your attacks. Another tip here is for the setter. After your first heavy lands, you can decide to either stop your combo completely and then throw a guard break, or after your first heavy, chain into another heavy, but feint this attack into a guard break. The purpose of chaining into a feinted attack can really help lock in the timing you need with your ally, but it is not a requirement. I find it is usually easier to negate the heavy feint on characters with very slow heavies. Another very similar gank is called a bash gank. The initiator begins by throwing a neutral bash and the follow-up light attack, which confirms a heavy for the external. The initiator then guard breaks to confirm a chain heavy for the external. Here is the same gank, but from the point of view of the external. To build from the last gank, this next one is almost identical, but here the initiator simply uses a bash instead of a guard break to confirm the external's chained heavy. Now moving on to the advanced ganks. The main ganks in this section are called parry ganks. Parry ganks are more advanced because these require movements on your opponent's part, and your teammate and yourself must be able to adjust and take advantage of the situation. These ganks are more unpredictable and harder to initiate, but can lead to massive punishes. This first gank is called the heavy parry gank. Here, one teammate must get a successful parry on the enemy's heavy attack. Whichever player gets this parry is now automatically the initiator or setter. The setter throws a light attack as you normally would get after a heavy parry. This light attack will confirm the external's neutral heavy attack. The setter then guard breaks to confirm for the external chain or finisher heavy. A light parry gank is exactly the same as a heavy parry gank. The only difference here is the setter must get a light parry, and instead of throwing a light attack counter, they can throw a heavy attack. Light parry ganks are great to use against opponents who rely too heavily on their dodge attacks. The other gank I have in this section doesn't really have a specific name, but I have been referring to it as the quick gank or fast gank, because it's just that, fast. Here, the initiator lands a guard break, then throws a neutral heavy. This time, the external uses a guard break or bash to confirm for the initiator's chain heavy. You can also do this quick bash after a parry of any type, with the external throwing a bash after the parry counter to confirm for the initiator's chained attack. Although this gank is mechanically simpler than the other ganks mentioned, the reason I have this in the advanced gank slot is because it is a gank that requires you and your opponent to read the situation at hand. This gank deals less damage than the other ones, but allows you to kill an opponent at low health faster as to stop them from stalling you. For the first of the hero unique ganks, we'll go over one of the most common, the infinite Medjay gank. This works with the Medjay and any hero with a heavy light chain. The non-specific player, who I'll refer to as the external, can begin the gank in a few ways, but the easiest is to use a neutral bash with a follow-up light attack. This confirms the Medjay's grab from staff mode. The external then throws a neutral heavy after the Medjay's attack fully lands, and then follows up with a chain light attack. This chain light from the external will confirm another Medjay grab, as long as the Medjay is buffering his next grab. You can indefinitely continue this gank until death, loss of stamina, or revenge. I refer to this gank as the Shinobi double bash. This will work with a Shinobi and any other hero. The Shinobi initiates with a dodge bash and follow-up heavy attack, which will confirm an opener heavy for the external teammate. This heavy will put the opponent into a long enough hit stun for the Shinobi to perform a roll forward bash, which will in turn confirm a chained heavy for the external teammate. This next gank requires both a Shinobi and a Jingjun, or JJ. The JJ initiates the gank off of any type of parry and performs his chokehold parry counter. While the enemy is being held, the Shinobi will purposefully miss an attack by performing a backstep heavy, then chaining a top heavy unblockable finisher. If timed correctly, this will pull the enemy down into the Shinobi's sickle rain. From here, the Shinobi will only perform 2 of the 3 hits of the sickle rain combo and flip backwards. After the second hit of the sickle rain, the JJ will throw a top heavy attack which confirms the Shinobi's roll forward bash, which then confirms the JJ's chained heavy. For the final gank of today, this one requires both a JJ and pirate. Pirate initiates the gank with a guard break. JJ performs a dodge forward bash, which confirms the pirate's skewer. The pirate player does not perform the gunshot, and instead waits for the pirate to kick the opponent off of her sword. As the opponent is being kicked, the JJ throws a top heavy. The pirate then throws a light attack, which confirms the JJ's chained unblockable heavy. Before we end today, I need to make a quick disclaimer. This is not a comprehensive list of all possible ganks. I wanted to show some of the most common, as well as some special ones for you all, but there are so many more ganks out there. I'd like to thank you all so very much for making it through the end of the whole video, and I hoped you learned something new. I would like to give a massive shout out to my friends for helping me gather the clips I needed for today's video and allowing me to use them as test dummies. For those of them that have channels, I'll be linking them below. Take care, and don't forget to join the dark side.